Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure to rise to speak today again about our budget. I've been talking with constituents in my riding of Hastings, Lennox and Addington about a few of the highlights from our fall fiscal update, and it's been going really, really well. I hear all the time about how important the Canada Child Benefit has been for families, for helping families. And to take a snapshot, in the month of July this year, there were a total of 8,710 tax-free payments made in my riding, which has benefited 15,860 children. The average payment has been $610 for a total of over $5.3 million. This happens every month, and it's also been doing a lot of good by injecting money into our local economy. So I was very impressed to see the announcement that we will be expanding the tax-free Canada Child Benefit to keep pace with the increasing costs of living 2 years ahead of schedule. We can do that because our economic plan is working, and the economy is booming, with over 500,000 jobs created since we came to office, most of them full-time. And I'll get back to that. But first, I want to I was reminded recently that it was close to this time 2 years ago that I was on a campaign trail in a town of Sterling in my riding. I was going door to door and came up to a playground that had several young mothers there with their children. I stopped to say hello, and of course we talked about what our party was going to do, is proposing to help families. The Canada Child Benefit was a huge hit, and the reason is that low and middle income families have needed extra help. We promised to help families who needed it the most, and we have kept that promise. The tax-free Canada Child Benefit has lifted over 300,000 kids out of poverty. In a riding like mine with higher than average child poverty rates, this has had a huge impact. It's put more money in the pockets of those who need it the most, and they have been able to spend it to put food on the table, clothes on their kids' backs, books, sports, arts programs, broadband internet, you name it. And this is so important, since the data shows that with the rising cost of living, a family of four in the western part of my riding had to pay almost $1,400 more for groceries in 2016 than it did 5 years earlier. The Hastings Prince Edward Poverty Roundtable and Hastings Prince Edward Public Health have rightly pointed out that income is one of the best predictors of health. Predictors of health. We know that when money is tight, healthy food is one of the first things to be cut in order to pay rent and other bills. In order to save money, people may skip meals, eat fewer vegetables and fruit, drink less milk, and fill up on high-calorie, low-nutrient foods because those foods are cheaper. The result of this unhealthy diet is an increased risk of chronic disease and poor growth and development in children. This affects everyone. In comparison to food-secure households, annual health care costs are 23% higher in households with marginal food insecurity and 121% higher in households with severe food insecurity in Ontario. Because the Canada Child Benefit is tax-free money up front, families can use it whatever way they need for their kids. For some, that is as fundamental as putting food on the table and clothing on their kids' backs. For families in a stronger position, that can still mean help for sports and arts programs, or both. And the point is, since it's not a tax credit that tends to only help families that already can afford to spend money up front, we are able to help even more families who need it most. In the eastern part of my riding, the food policy of Council for Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox and Addington has pointed out that 24.6% of all families in the area are single-parent families, with 80% of those being female-led. Given that there is still an unacceptable pay gap where women in Canada are earning only 87 cents to every dollar earned by men, these mothers can use help. And in the cases where it's the dads or grandparents, they're also getting help as well. 15.4% of the population of Lennox and Addington live under the low-income cutoff after-tax group, and 25% of youth between the ages of 15 to 24 live under low-income thresholds. There's a clear need for help in my riding, and so, Mr. Speaker, we are helping to lift kids out of poverty. Of all the things that our government has done, the Canada Child Benefit is the one that I am the most proud of. Even if it were for this measure alone, I hope that all members in this House will be supporting this fiscal update. But that's not all. There's more good news. Combating poverty and giving people the tools to find work is important to constituents in my riding, and in the Hastings Prince Edward Poverty Roundtable has put together an employment and security working group to work on this issue. Our government will help. We know that individuals and families who are working hard to join the middle class shouldn't have to struggle each month just to make ends meet. So we're proposing to strengthen the working income tax benefit. This is a refundable tax credit that puts more money in the pockets of low-income workers and gives people a little extra help as they transition to work. By letting low-income workers take home more money while they work, the working income tax benefit encourages more people to join the workforce and offers real help to nearly 1.5 million Canadians who are working hard to join the middle class. So we are investing an additional $500 million in the program every year starting in 2019. We'll be working closely with the provinces and territories to find the best ways to expand this program and giving an update in our next budget. This is being well received. The Canadian Labour Congress has pointed out that for the second year in a row, the feds are taking steps to improve lives of low-income Canadians with the working income tax benefit. The National Housing Collaborative also pointed out that extra help for the working poor is welcome news in the fall economic statement. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to return to how we're doing this. Our government's economic plan is working. We're putting money in the pockets of those who need it the most and working to rebalance some of the inequities that exist in our society. We've improved the guaranteed income supplement for low-income seniors and strengthened the CPP. We cut taxes on the middle class and raised them on the wealthiest 1%. We are investing in the infrastructure programs, innovation, and green technology, which is making our economy more resilient and creating the jobs of the future. And we're also stimulating the economy through the Canada Child Benefit. As a result, we're seeing Canada have the fastest economic growth in a decade and the best in the G7. That's excellent news for jobs, with over 500,000 created since we came to office, and most of them full-time, including 35,000 just created in the last month and 17,500 of those being under youth employment, which is very positive. Once again, something that is so important within our rural communities to try to create as much employment as we possibly can. Mr. Speaker, that's a plan that's worth supporting. Our infrastructure investments are really making a difference to increase the productivity of our businesses. We need to be able to make investments that increase productivity. We need to make investments that will decrease the inequalities that exist within our society. We need to increase investments into climate infrastructure, into innovation, and into resiliency so that we create an economy that's going to benefit all Canadians. And in the redistribution of that wealth through the Canada Child Benefit, through the working income tax benefit, through the increase to the guaranteed income supplement, we rebalance the distribution of wealth within our society that we've been talking about for over a generation that has gone too far in one direction. We need to rebalance the economy so that we can grow our middle class, because when the middle class does well, then we all do well as Canadians, especially in our local economies. Right? The Canada Child Benefit, the great thing about that is that every cent of that money is spent in our local economies. You want to talk about building rural sustainability? That is how we go about building sustainability in rural communities. Increases in the Guaranteed Income Supplement, increases in the CPP. These are all things that are going to put money in the pockets of those who are going to spend it. And that's great for our economy, great for creating jobs, and great for rural sustainability. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments?